I'm Kristen Volk, and I'm an instructor of Parenting by Connection in Denver, Colorado. And I'm here today to talk to you about being in the flow of parenting and how we can support clients in getting more into that flow. Parenting is such a challenging job. So much of the time we spend our time muddling through parenting, muddling through chaos and unpredictability, which obviously is extremely challenging. And of course we have these intense moments of satisfaction and fulfillment, which just fills our heart. And then we also have the drudgery, the everyday drudgery of running after our children, picking up after them, telling them to pick up after themselves, cooking meals, driving kids around, all the stuff to get through our day-to-day life of parenting. What we really want to work towards is helping parents get into that flow of parenting where things are clicking. There might be high challenges, but also we can meet those challenges with skills. We know what to do and we know how to do it. And there's lots of satisfaction in that kind of work. And that's what Parenting by Connection has to offer to parents. It's really a framework for parents to work within that provides lots of satisfaction, and it allows flow to happen naturally within the relationship so that parenting becomes more full of joy and more fulfilling. So the question is, how do we do that? How does that structure work? How does that framework work? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So there's really two main principles. The first principle is connection with your child. And that's really a skill. So many of us were expected to know how to do that as adults. But for example, I never had connection as I was growing up. It's an old paradigm that kids were supposed to be obedient to their parents and forced to be obedient. Where we know now, neuroscience teaches us that connection is what helps us to be cooperative and motivates us in so many different ways. And so learning that skill of how to connect with our children can be quite profound. And we're really talking about not just emotional connection, we're also talking about limbic connection. So really understanding how the limbic brain works and the prefrontal cortex. These are the things that we teach in our class. We have 4 tools basically for the parent-child connection. And what they do is they keep things moving in the relationship so that we minimize the stuckness that we can feel. Adults get stuck. We have lots of patterns that we've brought with us. Some of them are survival skills that we had as children. And then we bring into our adult relationships or the relationship we have with our children. And then our children also get stuck. So when we can keep things moving in the relationships, we have so much more opportunity to have flow in them. What these tools have also done is they've operationalized connection. So when you just follow these components that we teach in the classes, then the connection just happens. And it's so easy for it to happen. That makes it very easy for people who have lots of what we call a big emotional backpack that they're carrying around. They can still create connection, though things have been challenging, things have been hard in our lives, and those hard things can put a block in the flow. But you can still create connection in that process. And that's why operationalizing that connection, like Parenting by Connection does, can be so profound for parents who are really having a hard time. But obviously all parents can benefit from that. So I want to go briefly through the 4 tools that we offer. So the first one is to lean in to our children's emotions. By that I mean that allowing your child to have their emotions, accepting them, and being present and available for those emotions. We don't have to agree with those emotions. We don't have to solve the problem. We don't have to fix anything. We don't have to give a lecture. We just support the emotions happening actually so that our child can actually process hard things, and we actually lean into them. And I'll give you an example of what that might look like. My son is in 5th grade. I have 2 children. My son is in 5th grade, and he had a big project that was due on a Thursday. And he had a month and a half to do the project. He's been working on it diligently, but the project was huge. It was actually 4 different projects, 2 reports and 2 dioramas. And we got to the Monday of that week, and he had basketball one night, so really I had 2 nights to finish the project. He had to rewrite his reports because that was part of the process. You handed it in early and then had to do a rewrite. Well, on that Monday, he was diligently sitting down to go do it. He absolutely was firm in that he wanted to use a pen to do his homework, to write his report. And I told him multiple times, if you make a mistake, you're gonna have to rewrite it. And that's, I wouldn't recommend that, but I let him do what he needed to do. Of course, 3/4 down the page, he made a couple of big errors. And so I just sat down with him. I was anticipating something would happen, right? So I sat down with him and I just said, "Ooh, sorry, sweetheart, what do you think needs to happen here?" And he looked at me with wide eyes. "I need to rewrite it? Kind of looks that way, doesn't it?" No! He just went up in arms, literally. And he went stomping around the house, living room, kitchen, bedroom, hallway, and he just went on a rant. He talked about how his teacher doesn't know what he's doing, his teacher's giving the class too much work, he wasn't gonna go to school on Thursday or Friday, he wanted to be homeschooled. There's a whole litany of different rants and issues. And so how I respond is I leaned into those emotions. I didn't judge them, I completely accepted them. I also know that when we offload our emotions like that, we create more space in our mind to function well. And so I let him do his rant. I focused on nonverbal communication. I stayed warm. I followed him in a very deliberate way. I didn't chase after him. I didn't give him a lecture, and allowed him to do this for probably about an hour. And then I said to him at one point, "So what do you think would happen if you wrote 5 sentences and we timed it?" And he just perked up. He's like, "It's a great idea." So he sat down and did his 5 sentences, and it took a whole 6 minutes, 11 seconds. He was encouraged by that, and he sat down and wrote one of the reports. And then I said he had to go to bed, because by then it was late. The next day after school, he came home again to do his homework, sat down, and for a solid 6 hours, from 4 to 10 o'clock at night, worked diligently. He took a few small breaks, and we took a break for dinner, worked so hard to get his projects done, and got him done early. It was amazing. And it was so great to see his capacity to focus and to function well on this project that I would have said initially was really too much work for him. And I was so proud of him, and I was so happy that rather than me get into a power struggle with him, rather than me lecture him about the importance of school, the importance of getting your homework done, the importance of his relationship with his teacher, that he shouldn't disappoint anybody, that this is a life moment, a decision making of whether you're going to succeed or not, rather than get into that mode, all I had to do was focus on connection, lean into his emotions, focus on connection, and he figured it out for himself. Some of the things that I did say to him when he was in his rant were things like, "Sorry, it's hard, sweetheart. This is a big project. You still have to do your homework. You still have to finish the project. We have to face what's hard." So I held him in the space that I know he can live at, but he couldn't at that moment. And that's part of the job of that limbic anchoring. I continue to give my warmth, but I also sort of hold his truth and who he is and what he's capable of. And it just turned out beautifully. And he has so much confidence now working through that and trust himself even more than he did before. So that's our first tool. We call that stay listening. It's when we allow feelings and we are the limbic anchor. The second tool is to increase the time that a child feels strong positive connection with a parent. And we call this tool special time. It's sort of like a connection vitamin that really feeds our child's sense of internalized sense of connection and safety. When they get a regular diet of that kind of connection, then their internalized sense of safety increases, and their overall sense of safety in the world increases. And what happens is that can seep out into other areas of a child's life where they're just feeling good and they don't fall apart so easily. And it's a set period of time where you use a timer and you name it. And you would say something to your child like, "Okay, I have 15 minutes and I will do anything you want to do." So I, as the parent, would do anything the child wants to do within the bounds of safety. And I delight in the child with 0 interruptions, no distractions, which is highly unusual in our world today. And it really feeds our child. It feeds their need for this kind of intense connection. The third tool is to understand that when a child goes off track, that when their behavior goes off track, when they're doing something nutty, that their connection has broken for them and they can't think. And so what that really means is that they need help in getting back into equilibrium. Their brain and their mind are both out of balance. They're filled with unhelpful thoughts and perhaps negative patterns. So they need help to get back into balance. And what that means is that we actually physically set the limit. And we would do that by going to our child and saying, you know, you physically might put your hand over their hand and say, sweetheart, I can't let you do that. And you also bring your warmth when you bring that limit. You bring both, so that you're speaking to their limbic brain with your warmth and your eye contact and your connection. And the physical stopping of the limit is stopping your child from doing nutty things. And then it allows them to offload what's hard. It allows them to offload what's getting in their way of connecting with you. So setting limits can be extremely powerful, and what I love about it is that you're working with the child's system, you're working with how their brain and body works, rather than going for that power struggle. Like, this is the way it has to be, and then your child stands into their position. No, this is the way it's going to be. And you get into this power struggle that typically doesn't go anywhere, and it's a major battle, and someone usually ends up losing. When you set limits this way, your child feels like you're on their side, and they get the sense that you're there to help them work through something that's hard. Extremely beneficial and powerful way to work through challenges for a child. And it also helps me, I know personally, that I feel so great that I didn't push my agenda on my child. I allowed them to find their own way with my support. So it's a beautiful way to really work with children. The fourth tool is one where we enter our child's world. We follow the laughter and we give them the more powerful role. We call this play listening. And with play listening, it really helps them work through emotional distress. It helps to build confidence, and it helps them work through challenges too. And so things like pillow fighting and wrestling are great forms of play listening. Another silly game that we play in our house is, I just call it myself Big Butt, and it started when one day my daughter told me, Mom, you have a big butt. And so after I got through my shock, I just said, oh, I got a big butt and my butt goes everywhere, and I started hitting her and bumping her with it, and she just laughed hysterically, and my son started laughing. So every so often I sort of do things I get them with my butt, but I always give them the more powerful role, so they come back after me and I fall down, or I miss them and I bump into the wall, things like that. That just keeps that laughter going and creates incredible amount of connection. And we know, neuroscience tells us that connection is really what children need for healthy brain development. And it's really good for us as well, because we feel good at night when we go to bed that, you know, I might have fallen short a couple times today, but I really connected with my children. I did special time. We laughed a lot. Life was full and it was rich and it was rewarding. That's what flow is all about, and that's what we'd really like to help our clients to achieve. I also want to say that I know that offering connection is not always easy. So we have a lack of relaxed time in our lives today. Lives are so full. We can't just relax and nurture our children so often. We have to really make a just conscious decision to do that. 49% of the families in the United States are living paycheck to paycheck. So much of our attention and focus goes on the daily needs to get through the day too. And that makes it also hard to relax and nurture our children as well. And parenting is such hard work. Seldom do we have the time or the energy to talk about what's hard or really to be heard. But it's really important to do this. It's really important to talk about what's challenging in parenting, but it feels dangerous and it feels shameful sometimes to do that. But when we don't have a place of support for that, we carry that burden around with us, and it affects our ability to connect with our children. And also the intensity of parenting can drive parenting partners apart, so we can become isolated. So it's hard to work together, it's hard to be in flow when there's this kind of isolation. And we also have burdens from life's challenges. Some of us have big emotional backpacks from our own childhood. And you know, if we're in transition or challenging things are going on, finding a new school, someone's in the hospital, car problems, just transitions and burdens that happen so frequently can also get in the way of being able to connect with our children. And that leads me to the second form of ways to connect and get into the flow is about support for ourselves. It's so important to have support for ourselves. It's really important for parents to learn effective ways to offload what's really hard about parenting. And that is something that we call listening partnerships for parents. And when you practice this, it gives you the ability to be more present in the moment with your children. It also gives you greater capacity to love your children well, because we all want to love our children well, but things get in the way. And when you can grow that capacity, it's so fulfilling. And it also can heal our triggers. When you get skilled at listening partnerships, you can actually learn to heal the triggers that so often happen when we're working with our children. And it also allows us to connect with our inner wisdom. When we get listened to on a regular basis, we connect within ourselves so much better, which also translates into more connection with our children too. So listening partnerships for parents is a way to share support with one another. So it can be 2 or more people where one person talks and the other person listens. And the listener is so important with their attention, and they don't judge, they don't give advice, they don't try to fix anything, they don't compare, and everything is confidential. And so they're serving really as that limbic anchor in the listening partnership. Then after one person has a turn, you switch. This person talks and the other person listens, and you do the same thing in return. And it's powerful to be a listener too, because you start to realize that, oh, it's challenging. This job of parenting is challenging no matter what. And so it's great to get that kind of support, and it really lifts us up to be more of who we can be and want to be as parents. Another great aspect of it is that you can do it in person or on the phone. You can do it anywhere in the world at any time that's convenient for you, and it's free. You can set up a whole network of listening partnerships for yourself. It just takes the motivation and the willingness to knock around. It feels uncomfortable at first. So I hope you got the sense of how parenting by connection can be a scaffolding for a family to claim flow in their lives. And the tools are really the supports that can be uniquely organized within any particular family. They don't have to look one particular way. Special time looks different in one family than it does in another family, for example. So it can really meet the challenges of almost any kind of family. So I also want to share with you ways that you can learn more. You can go to the website of handinhandparenting.org, Hand in Hand Developed Parenting by Connection. Tons of articles and online classes and all kinds of amazing resources for you as well. I also have a website where you can find out about classes that are happening in Denver, which is parentingbyconnection.net. And then I have an active Facebook page, which is Parenting by Connection with Kristen Volk. I really look forward to learning more about your practice and how together we can help parents to get into that flow, that happy, healthy, joyful, fulfilling flow of parenting.